let's be real. If one missing egg or a sold out jug of milk sends you spiraling, that ain't a supply chain issue. Oh no, it's a you don't know your substitutions issue.
What?
We have outsourced so much of our kitchen know-how that now when prices jump or the shelves are bare, people act like dinner's canceled. But here's the truth. Grocery stores were never supposed to be your security blanket. And if the last few years haven't made that crystal clear, bird flu, inflation, weather disasters, international chaos, then consider this your wake-up call. So today, I am covering 8 of the most common ingredients that people run out of, and how to swap them so well, you won't even miss the original. Because substitutions just aren't a, oh, neat trick. I mean, they are grandma-level skills that turn your pantry into a playbook. Substitutions are not a plan B. They're a power move. And once you've got these down, you'll cook with confidence, save money, and stop letting one missing egg, or perhaps none at all, ruin your whole day. So just a couple of generations ago, every home cook knew how to substitute ingredients because they had to. If the chickens weren't laying, they didn't run to Aldi, they used applesauce. And if the butter ran low, they grabbed bacon grease or lard saved from yesterday. Okay, Ashley, I heard you call that answer out from the back. Back then, you did not have 24 access to 14 kinds of flour or 6 types of milk. You had what you had and you made it work. Fast forward today, and people don't know what to do when eggs hit $6 a dozen. Look, it's true. Modern convenience has made us a little lazy because it's disconnected us from understanding how ingredients actually work. And that disconnect has created an opening, an opportunity for big food companies to profit. And they want you dependent on prepackaged, pre-measured, pre-done everything. And y'all know it grinds my gears when people cook like the recipe is sacred. One missing egg, game over. No muffins tonight. But here's the truth. That mindset is costing you, and you likely already have the fix in your fridge. Which is why you're going to want to download the free substitutions cheat sheet that comes with this long video. It includes a thorough list of 7 or more substitutes that you can use when you're low or out of eggs or oil, milk, cheese, baking powder, or flour. Now, a reason that this video is so long is because I'm giving you visual comparison proof, so be sure to use the chapter bookmarks to bounce around and use what you need. Eggs have jumped in price again over the past couple of months, partly due to bird flu, but you know what I didn't do? I didn't stress, I didn't grumble, and I certainly didn't spend $8 on a specialty egg substitute. I said, not today, Satan, and I pulled out my list of substitutions, and I'm going to show you how I was able to prepare ingredients that ordinarily have an egg and the appropriate substitutes that you want to use that will get you nearly the same results. So here's how you stop being a vulnerable shopper and instead become a confident home cook. Let's talk about some milk substitutes. And to help us understand the science of milk, we're going to use cornbread as our base recipe. Now, milk really is a powerhouse multitasker in a cornbread recipe because first what it does is it hydrates the cornmeal and the flour, and this allows things to, well, the starches actually, to swell and to soften. So it is actually the natural lactose in milk that promotes browning and flavor, especially when it's paired with butter. And then you have that combination of the fat and protein from whole milk that contributes to that moist texture and that slight tenderness. Now, another thing is that milk is slightly acidic. Now, the same is true for buttermilk, but it activates the baking soda, giving your cornbread that rise and fluff. And that combination is what gives you the result of tender cornbread that has the right balance between crumb and crumble. So to standardize this recipe, we're going to use some Jiffy cornbread mix. We're going to make the original in here, and then I'm going to show you 3 substitutions in my different size glass bowls here. Now we'll add an egg to each bowl. And then not on the recipe box, but I just have to because this is the way I've always made cornbread growing up. I mean, you gotta add a little pinch of sugar or 2. So the last ingredient in your base recipe is going to be 1 cup of milk, or it's a 1/3 cup of milk. Sorry, there we go, 1/3 cup of milk. So if you don't have milk, the first substitution that you can use is diluted yogurt. That's right, yogurt. So it can be Greek yogurt, it can be regular yogurt, So you want to go with either plain or vanilla, which is usually the flavors that I buy. And so you're just going to take a half cup of yogurt and then add a half cup of water. So in case you were wondering, the yogurt is going to add fat, acidity, and creaminess. It activates the baking soda. So you are going to get moist, tender cornbread that may have a subtle tang. You might not notice it at all. I really don't. Now in this case, more is not better. So you do need to dilute your yogurt, because if you don't, the cornbread will become too heavy. So it's kind of going to be like a cake texture. And if you are someone like me that likes to use cornbread as a topping on like beef or chicken casseroles, or if you make cornbread like sausage muffins with like egg and cheese like thrown into your batter and you cook it up, oh my goodness. I mean, you're going to want to use this. It's a no-brainer. And y'all, quite honestly, like sometimes maybe if you are running a little bit low on milk, so maybe you're not even out of it, but you have your yogurt, I mean, you can make decisions in your kitchen to say, okay, well, I want to save my milk for this recipe, or maybe like, you know, the kids, you know, want a glass to go with whatever. So this is a way that you can be strategic in your own kitchen by saying, oh, okay, well, I don't need to just use this. I can also use, you know, yogurt. All right, so here is what the yogurt batter is looking like. Oh, so good, right? Another fat, creamy combo that you may already have in your kitchen is coconut milk. I'm telling you, all this coconut richness is going to give you a very luscious crumb. And even better, all of the natural oils are going to prevent dryness. Now, will the tropical flavor alter the cornbread's taste profile? Yeah, but you can make that work in your favor. So when you are using coconut milk in your cornbread or any other type of bread, here's what you want to do. You want to go savory. So you want to think jalapeno, adding some corn kernels, or slightly sweet versions where the coconut oil won't clash. All right, so one thing is that the high fat content, which you can kind of see, I mean, since things are so thick, it is, or it can weigh down the rise, but only slightly. You are still absolutely going to get a very, very silky texture. All right, let me put some elbow grease into this real quick. So this next milk substitute is actually not milk at all. It's chicken broth. And yes, you can also use chicken, ham, or vegetable broth. So this is another savory only option. And the broth is going to add hydration without dairy, sugar, or fat. So this cornbread is going to be more rustic, less golden, slightly drier, but still delicious. Especially if you pair it with something like chili or stews. So we're gonna add a cup of broth. And then for those of y'all that cook with cast iron like your grandma did, here's what I wanna tell you. So maybe you don't make your cornbread without sugar. But if you do, here is where you would want to add a little bit of sugar like you saw me do earlier, because that's going to encourage some of the browning so that, you know, your dinner guests aren't like suspect. And then also, if you have already greased your cast iron with a little bit of fat, then that's also going to encourage your cornbread to brown. All right, y'all, let's go ahead and start to put everything in our baking dish. And I just came from my refrigerator because here's another little frugal kitchen tip. So I remember that my Nana, after you unwrap your sticks of butter, you should save these, because like I don't get the spray things of oil or whatever like that, but she would just keep them in a little jar in the refrigerator. And whenever you need to do stuff like this, I mean, I didn't have to think. You would be buying wax paper and then taking butter from the actual stick to do all this, when actually, I mean, look at it. It's already ready. So she would just use these a couple more times, and then you throw it away. I'm telling you. All right, so let's go ahead and grease these up. This is just a silicone muffin tin. I actually just got this one. I've been using, as y'all know, my two lone little silicone red ones for the longest time, but I did find this one on clearance, maybe because it's last year's Easter's edition, I don't know. But anyways, I like using these because you never need to buy cupcake liners, right? Because they truly do pop out so easily. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get my sticky note and then so I can label what's going where. All right, y'all, so I'm gonna do 2 of each and we're gonna do original, yogurt, coconut, and then broth. Original. Now we have yogurt. All right, now we're gonna add coconut. And last but not least, our broth. Oh, it smells so savory. We're gonna put this in a 400-degree oven for about 15 or 20 minutes. Are you ready to see this cornbread? So I already let it cool a little bit, but after I opened the oven door, I did go ahead and I already buttered the tops. Okay, y'all, so as a reminder, we have our original yogurt, the coconut. Remember I told you those are gonna be a bit more dense. And then our broth. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're gonna pop these out. See, this is why I love silicone, y'all, right? I mean, okay, so this is our original cornbread. Let's go ahead and open it up. Oh, gorgeous. This is gonna be dangerous. So I'm gonna make the rest of the cornbread batter, freeze it, because oh my goodness, me and cornbread, I cannot be trusted. Okay, so now let's do our yogurt ones. Now, yeah, these are a bit more dense and nothing is wrong with that. So here's what we've got so far. Oh, all right, let's go ahead, open up. Oh, come on now. Oh, yes. Yeah, so I used original. I do not notice a tang at all. So good. All right, so these are the coconut muffins. Now they are a little bit more pale. Whew, these are still very, very hot. All right, so again, good weight to them. Still super soft. I mean, they're still holding their shape. You can tell that they are a bit more moist to the feel. So let's go ahead. Yeah, see, it's definitely a bit more tender there and dense. See, yeah, which is fine, y'all. Now you can absolutely taste the coconut essence, right? That's there. But you know what? I actually think that it is good to, what I like to do is I cook a lot of my staples with different variations. Why? Because it means that I can still use go-to recipes that don't get boring just because I've kind of pivoted the flavor just a bit. And so I still think that these are delicious. I mean, this would be great with something, you know, curry inspired, or again, if you're leaning more savory, but plain is also very delicious too. So we have our original here, and then we have our yogurt. And then, yeah, so they just don't really hold the texture there, but the taste is still absolutely, you know, spot on. And lastly, we have our broth cornbread muffins. Now, these are going to be super savory. This was a chicken broth that I used. Very moist. All right. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And then the taste. It's like someone just stirred a little bit of like chicken soup into your cornbread. You should just intentionally skip the milk and add the broth instead, because I just think it's delicious. Wow. Like it just infuses so much flavor. It doesn't overwhelm it. You know that it's there, but in the best way possible. Really good. So here's the thing. When you make a meal work around missing ingredients, you just don't save money, you gain resilience. And that's because you know how to make meals work even when the store doesn't. You don't need to stockpile everything. I don't. But what you do need to get is skills. Oh, I said it. I think I can use this. Put this here. I'm going to show you how you can substitute eggs when you go to make pancakes. I wish that visually, I could have had 6 of the same size bowls. But I don't. Well, those aren't clear, and I wanted you to kind of see, how things interact. So let's get to this recipe. Actually, first, let me label things for you. All right, y'all, so this is just a basic pancake recipe. So what I'm going to do now is to portion out my ingredients. And so I'll make a cup of each. And so this container here is I just kind of group them pretty close together because it's just easier. So this is the original pancake recipe. So all of our containers are going to get 1 cup of flour. Now to the assembly line, we're going to add a teaspoon of sugar and a teaspoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of baking soda, pinch of salt. Now I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of a neutral oil. I have avocado oil, but you could also use melted butter. And now let's add 1 cup of milk. Now let's get back to the original, because in a pancake recipe, an egg does several critical things. So for starters, your egg is a binder because it's going to hold together both the dry and wet ingredients. And as a result, you're going to get a cohesive batter. Second, they're going to give your pancakes that structure because they solidify when heated, and that helps to give your pancakes that lift and structure. Now, do you see this fat and lectin in the yolk? It's nature's equivalent of this thing, an emulsifier. An emulsifier is just a fancy word for mixing 2 things that wouldn't normally go together, like oil and water, until you get a smooth, integrated blend. And they also add a subtle richness and color to the final product. So I just realized that the pressure is on for me to make perfectly round, circular pancakes, which I don't do in real life. Some of them look pretty decent, but I never think about that in the morning when I'm making pancakes. And so just, y'all, I'm a regular, true home cook, okay? All right, y'all, I'm not exactly sure how technical we're going to be on this, but let's go ahead and check for softness. Ooh. Right? That's what you're used to. Nice and light, airy, fluffy. Ooh, yeah, those are kind of hot. A few crusty edges here, otherwise smooth. I love the crusty edges of the pancakes. That's one of my favorite parts. And we'll cut them with a knife. Yeah, good texture there, y'all. All right, so here's the original. Now let's go ahead and talk about our substitutions. So now let's talk about our first pantry substitute that you can use if you don't have eggs when you're making pancakes, and that is a very ripe banana. So bananas are rich in moisture and natural sugars, and that contributes to a soft and moist texture and some of the browning when you go to cook your pancakes. And truly, if you smell a banana, that is what you smell. It is that sweetness and the sugars. So here's what I do in my kitchen. I will slice several bananas, and they're not always used for my smoothies. If I need something to act as a binder, and I already have bananas that are at this stage, so they're right at that nice sweet stage, I'll go ahead and tuck them in the freezer because they are an egg or a binder replacement. Now, the thing is that they are going to impart their flavor, which is fine if you're leaning into a banana-based pancake anyways, but not so ideal if you want a neutral flavor. Now, bananas do lack the natural binding strength on their own, so they are going to be a bit more fragile when we go to flip them. But the trade-off ain't too bad. You're going to get this delicious sweetness with these caramelized edges and this chewy interior. And I like to use anywhere between 1/4 and 1/3 of a cup of mashed banana. Now, obviously, the bananas made this batter a bit more dense, but you still get, as you can see, an incredible rise and softness that's there. But I mean, you could put these on a plate, and I'm telling you, no one would look at this or taste. Again, there is that banana flavor that's there, but no one's going to be like, oh my goodness, you're missing an egg from this recipe. All right, so let's go ahead and cut these. Beautiful. All right, so again, the batter is a bit more heavy as I shared, but these are still soft and fluffy pancakes. And they taste pretty good too. Now, another egg substitute that you can use in your pancakes is yogurt. And yogurt introduces fat, protein, and acid into the batter. So first off, it helps with moisture retention, and the acidic nature of yogurt interacts with the baking soda, adding rise. Now, what I will say is that these pancakes tend to be very tender and moist. Now, yogurt doesn't bind as well as eggs, but if you flip carefully, the flavor payoff is worth it. Doesn't this create a beautiful batter? All right, so all I can say is that I hope some of y'all are seeing a theme where you're like, Cassandra, I actually think that the ones without the egg look better. Okay, so these are still like super hot, but oh, don't they look gorgeous? So you can see a little bit of the hand imprint that's there, right? So like these are still really, really dense. And then let's go ahead and cut these with a knife. It kind of reminds me of the banana texture. I'm not sure if you can see the steam kind of rolling off of them, right? I mean, look at this, y'all. These are gorgeous pancakes. Now, the great thing about yogurt is that it'll last 3 to 4 weeks in your fridge when left unopened, and then you still probably have about a week to 10 days after it is opened. Compare that to store-bought eggs where you typically have about 5 weeks. But what I'm getting at is that you have time to use either. And with results like this, you might start using yogurt anyways. So another egg replacer that you can use are chia seeds. And chia seeds are great because they form a gel that mimics the binding quality of eggs. So you'll just take a tablespoon of chia seeds, add 3 tablespoons of water, and then you're gonna let this sit for about 10 to 15 minutes. And what's going to happen is that it's going to form a mucilage. And that mucilage is going to trap air and water, and it's going to add structure to your baked goods. You're also going to get the health benefits from chia seeds. They're high in omega-3s, fiber, magnesium, calcium, and they're also a high protein source. But you may not get the same richness from eggs or some of the other substitutions that I've shared. And you're also going to notice that you have those visible flecks. So generally, and really this is just my opinion, I think the chia seed substitute lends best for more like rustic or hearty ingredients. All right, so here are chia seeds about 15 minutes later. You can see that kind of that mucilagous gel texture that I was sharing about. So let's add this into our chia seed pancake mixture. Let me go ahead and say this now before I forget. Now, I don't want you to get the impression that you can only use these substitutions in a recipe and not use eggs, because you absolutely can combine them. So for example, what I do in my own kitchen is that, yeah, with egg prices being what they are, I might cut down how many fresh eggs I'm using. So for example, if a recipe is calling for 3 eggs, I might cut it back to 1 egg, right? So I still have that, and then fold in one of these methods. And so I know for some of y'all that's obvious, but you can still pair them up, right? And so again, now if you buy eggs, once every other week, you don't have to, like, you can now stretch it out because you're folding in some of these, other methods. So that's just my 2 cents. So obviously your batter looks like this. Remember the flecks that I was talking about earlier? I mean, that may not be the biggest deal in the world for your family. You don't notice it in terms of like taste, but you do kind of see the little chia seeds in there. You don't have to tell me, you can see it. These chia seed pancakes are beautiful. Just a few of the specks that are there. It's really minor, but they're fluffy and they are soft. They still have like really good structure too. I will say that. And if you all are wondering, Cassandra, what are you doing with all these pancakes? I am throwing them in the freezer for freezer breakfast meals, y'all. So thank you for helping me cook. Now, another egg substitution that you can use is vinegar paired with baking soda. Technically, it's more of a leavening substitution than a binding one. So the gist is that when the acid from the vinegar interacts with the base from the baking soda, it releases carbon dioxide, which fluffs up your pancakes beautifully. But for best results, you want to pair this with other moisture-rich ingredients like the mashed bananas or the yogurt that I showed you earlier. So you're just going to take 1 teaspoon of baking soda and mix that with 1 tablespoon of vinegar. Can you tell how just fluffy this batter is? I mean, these pancakes are going to be so fluffy. Did I tell you these are going to be fluffy or what? I mean, they nearly look like English muffins. They are dense, but again, soft, super fluffy. I lowered the stack to 2 just so we could cut them. And here's what we've got. So a little less, as I mentioned, of the kind of binding, so that reflects, but it's still super soft. The pancakes are done, you know. Oh, yeah. And they still taste like pancakes. Now, every substitution I've shown you so far has been a pantry staple, but you can actually buy egg replacer. So this is by the brand Bob's Red Mill. And the ingredients are potato starch, tapioca flour, baking soda, and psyllium husk. Now in my area, and this is a 12-ounce bag, and it's equivalent to 34 eggs, the going price is $4.99. But on Amazon, I don't see that you can just get 1 bag. So 2 bags is $13. Well, $12.97. So that would make 1 bag $6.50. But at my price, so I'm saying all that just to say it's likely cheaper in stores than online. But if you think about, if the price is $5 for 34 eggs, then that roughly equates to 15 cents per egg. And you can see right here on the label that it says, great for all your baking needs. Ugh, I'm trying to read this backwards. Cookies, cakes, muffins, quick breads, brownies, pancakes, and more. It's just a no-brainer to have this. Plus, it's gluten-free. I mean, I may only use 2 or 3 bags of this a year. I love this for traveling because even when we travel, I still do a lot of cooking. But this is something that you just want to have in your pantry. Oh, I also want to share this. There are a lot of different egg replacers out there on the market. Like there are ones that are marketed as like vegan or like other things. They get expensive quick. But this one, as I said, it has really good ingredients. There's no soy, corn, grains, or beans, if that's your thing. It works really, really well. And the price is still competitive. The other ones, they're expensive. So the egg replacer requires 1 tablespoon of the egg replacer, and then you'll add 2 tablespoons of water. We're gonna stir that. All right, y'all, so we've got our egg replacer pancakes. And I mean, these have excellent structure. Sorry, I kind of overcooked this one on the bottom a little bit. But beautiful, right? You have the slightly crispy edges. The texture's great. Oh, nice and pillowy soft. Oh my goodness, yeah. I mean, there are definitely multiple methods you have for replacing eggs in your kitchen. So So I want to let you in on a secret that changed everything for me in the kitchen. It wasn't learning how to use a stand mixer. It was not mastering sourdough either. No offense to sourdough. It was building a smart pantry, not one that was just full of food, but full of possibility. When your pantry is stocked with versatile, foundational ingredients, it stops being just a closet and starts to become a safety net. I'm not talking about a bunker mentality here. I'm really talking about freedom. Because do you know what a basic but powerful pantry can do? It allows you to pivot like home cooks have done for generations, because your pantry and your meals are no longer a one-trick show. And I've proven this. Well, not proven because I don't want to take credit for this, of course. But one of the things that I offer you all is to download my, get this, I even call it a no recipe card, where I don't give you any amounts. I do give you instructions on how to kind of get to the recipe based off of like the ratios of what you have and what it should smell like, you know, that kind of thing. But then I also say, hey, you can use this ingredient, and I list like 5 or 6 other things for every single recipe for you to literally just kind of like highlight, because you should be able to open up your pantry doors or your refrigerator doors and then make whatever meal I share, because the possibilities, I mean, it's one thing if you don't have like any food in your house. I'm not talking about that. I am talking about like, man, like how do I pull together what I do already see in my refrigerator and things that I have already bought and I do have in the freezer. And there are so many home cooks that we are losing time and money by not knowing, again, just the basic foundational skills. And when you combine that kind of pantry with substitutions, that's the sweet spot. You start making decisions in the kitchen, not just following directions. Oh, that was good.
If this is our first time meeting, hi, I'm Cassandra from the blog becomingafarmgirl.com, and I'm here to help you cook with what's in season, on sale, and better yet, already on your shelf. Now, if you're on my grocery guide email list, this is already in your inbox, but if not, click on the link below in the description box, the pinned comment, or the QR code, because this video comes with a coordinating substitution guide. You're going to want to print this, put it in a sheet protector to have on hand when you run out of something or need to substitute. And that download is even more exhaustive than what I'm showing you in this video, because there's a lot you can do. In fact, I am very curious to check out the comments just to see what other people are doing.
So now let me teach you a little bit about how oil works. And the recipe that I'm choosing for demonstration purposes is more than appropriate, and that is brownies. After all, it is the oil that creates the moist, fudgy texture in brownies. Unlike butter, oil is 100% fat, and that is what helps to keep the brownies nice and chewy and gooey at room temperature. So oil, whether you're using vegetable or something more neutral like avocado oil, it doesn't impart flavor, but it does distribute that fat to make each bite, you know, chewy and moist. And I'm just using a box brownie mix for uniformity purposes. So to this mix, we're going to add 2 large eggs. And to this, we're going to add 3 tablespoons of water. And then give things a good stir. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is show you 4 substitutions. And I'm going to scoop out like a ½ cup of our mix out. I'll place it in here. And then I will still create the original recipe with oil, but just in this bowl. All right, so let's scoop out ½ cup. All right, so this first oil substitute is likely already sitting in your fridge or in your pantry, because did you know that in many cases, you can substitute the use of unsweetened applesauce for oil? So what applesauce does is it brings moisture and natural sugar while also retaining a soft texture and reduces fat. And when you put it in a batter, it typically turns out a little bit more puffier, like cake-like brownies, and that ain't a bad thing. Now the trade-off is going to be something that's maybe a little less flavor-rich with maybe some subtle apple notes. But if you are already working with a recipe that involves cinnamon or caramel, it's perfect. But in general, it is best for lightening up recipes. So we're just going to stir this in here. All right, and about a minute later, this is what you're working with. Super creamy and smooth. All right, let's go ahead and add another half cup. Now, another oil substitution that you can use is, once again, ripe bananas. So bananas behave very similar to applesauce, but they add a bit more flavor and body. So what happens during the baking process is that the banana will start to caramelize, and that creates not only a deeper color, but then also that classic chewy texture. Okay, so this is kind of what we're going for. And the thing that I would say is that bananas that are, hold on, let me go ahead and bring you down. So bananas or brownies made with banana are going to be denser. They're going to be very moist and noticeably, fruity, which actually is kind of ideal if you want to go for that kind of banana chocolate hybrid. All right, and about 60 seconds later, this is what you've got. All right, let's scoop out some more brownie mix for our next substitute. Surprise, surprise, you can use yogurt or sour cream as an oil substitute. So if you go with yogurt, that's going to give you the fat, protein, and acidity that leads to a very rich brownie with a denser crumb. But sour cream is going to give you a little bit of that tang, which actually complements dark chocolate. And that swap is going to give you a very luxurious mouthfeel and prevent the brownies from drying out. So you are going to lose a little bit, just a little bit of that chew, but you are going to gain it all back in creaminess. Oh my goodness. This one is probably my favorite substitute. Okay, so this is it 60 seconds later. Oh my goodness. Beautiful, right? Beautiful. Let's do that again. Okay, all right. Now, another oil substitute that you could use is melted butter, but I'm not going to show that because I don't think that's too much of a stretch for you to imagine. Now, most butters are typically 80% fat and 20% water, so you're going to get less moisture retention. Now, because they have less moisture, once your brownies cool, they are going to be a bit firmer. Another thing to note is that buttery taste is going to come through, right? So you are going to absolutely get that flavor upgrade, but you are going to lose a little bit of that chewy brownie texture. Now, another oil substitute that you can use when baking are avocados. I mean, think about it. Avocados are already loaded with healthy fats, and that's what's going to help you to retain that moist, chewy texture. And here's the thing, avocados' tastes are so mild that you don't even notice them being in a fudge brownie at all. And when I try to think of a drawback to using avocados, the only thing that comes to mind is that these brownies are going to turn out a little bit more fudgier and denser, but that's actually a win for most brownie lovers. Plus, adding avocado actually makes your brownies healthier because you're adding in tons of fiber, potassium, and heart-healthy fats. And see, that's what I mean about so many of these substitutions actually being options that you will just likely permanently adopt. So yes, for demonstration purposes, I am using boxed brownie mix. But when I actually go to make my homemade brownies, I am using, cacao, I'm using a low glycemic sugar, so we're not, spiking our insulin. I'm using a healthy fat like avocados. And so you will still end up with an end result that is absolutely delicious, but then isn't just sugar and processed ingredients, right? You're getting real food, dense nutrition without sacrificing taste. All right, you know the drill. All right, let's go ahead and slice open our avocado. And pretty much when you are substituting oil with avocado, it is a 1-to-1 replacement. I got this other bowl out and I was supposed to mash the avocado in there first, but it's fine. We got this. Just got to use a little bit of elbow grease in there to smooth it out. All right, so this is the end product. If I would have mashed it, it would have been just as smooth as the sour cream. But you don't need to be worried about this at all or even dirty up another dish when you go to make it because the avocado is fully going to melt and integrate into the brownies. Okay, so last but not least, we are left with our original brownie mix. So we're just going to go ahead and add our oil to this dish. And then this is what we're going to use as our original recipe comparison. All right, let's go ahead and add these to the cupcake pans. Okay, also before we scoop these into our cupcake liners, I just want to go ahead and share with you that this is our applesauce mixture, the avocado mixture, banana, and sour cream. And the way that I'm going to scoop everything into the pan is I'm going to leave my labels here so I remember. I'll put it in this way in the oven. So we'll do avocado, applesauce, banana, and sour cream. All right, so in this corner we have our avocado. Then over here we have our applesauce. Can you tell that this batter is going to be like fluffy? I don't know if you have to like feel it, but yeah, it's already kind of fluffing up. We're going to add our banana here. All right. And last but not least, our sour cream here. All right, y'all. And then right here in this section, I'm just going to go ahead and make 2 of the original kind of recipes. So this is what was made with the oil. All right, so now we're just going to go ahead and pop these in the oven to bake for just about 20 minutes. The moment of truth is here. And as a reminder, we have avocado, applesauce, banana, sour cream, and then our 2 originals. All right, so let's go ahead and I'll show you the avocado. Again, like good density to it. Let's go ahead and open it. Nice like crust here even that's forming. Here, I'll open it this way. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I do have like just the tiniest amounts of the avocado here. If that's something that's going to throw your family off, just make sure you actually blend it with, a blender. I just did this by hand. And I mean, you can only really see just the smallest amount, but it really, will just blend in quite nicely. Very dense, very moist. It's that combination between like I cannot taste avocado in here at all. You won't be able to either. You won't. So good. Very, very moist. That density and moisture ratio is definitely here. Like that's how I know it's with avocado, but it is not by the taste at all. These are delish. Okay, so now let's go for the applesauce brownie. So here we go. And as I mentioned, these are going to be a bit more like cakier. You still have this nice kind of crumb topping that's here. I mean, still super moist, but yeah, just a little bit more kind of like, yeah, just a little bit more like cakier. Okay, so in terms of taste, so it's mildly like a little less sweet, but there may be just a subtle tone of like apple notes, but not really at all. Yeah, it just gives it like a cupcake profile, which again, like that's not a bad thing at all. These are really good. Next up, we have our banana. Now, the brownies made with banana are going to be a little bit more dense and chewier. And remember, they're also going to be just a bit more banana forward. So let's go ahead. Oh, yeah. And in terms of the taste, I like that combination of banana and chocolate. If you haven't tried it, it works really, really well. Again, these are very moist, chewy for sure, great sweetness. The addition of banana really works. And last but not least, we have our sour cream here. Now, again, these are going to be a little bit more dense, but still like super moist. Ooh, see that kind of like crumb topping? Here's the top of the brownie. Mmm. Mmm. There's just like a very subtle like tang that's in there, but these are super moist. And they're going to stay soft like this even as it cools. Okay, and these two are the original recipes. So I just wanted to, well, this is like a smaller one that I made. And then here's another one where I just have like a bit more batter here. But again, like this is a very kind of like dense brownie. It has that chew, that density that's there. I mean, the taste profile, except for the banana where you can like taste some of that banana profile, like the taste difference is not noticeable there, right? There's subtle like texture differences in terms of the other options, giving like a little bit more kind of like fluff to them. But they're all really, really good. Okay, y'all. So we have brownies 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then this would be the original with oil brownie recipe. But I mean, if you look at this, come on, y'all. Like all of these work. All of these are great. Let me turn these around for those of y'all who are like, but I need my crispy, like chewy corners. How does it do with that? Beautifully. Beautifully. Come on now. Look at this. You cannot go wrong with either substitution. Speaking of grandma, she knew that powdered milk and evaporated milk weren't just for hard times. They were pantry staples. And she knew how to stretch food without sacrificing flavor. So today, when a store doesn't have what we want, most people either panic, overspend, or completely go without. But when your pantry is full of basics, you're no longer cooking out of scarcity. You're cooking with strategy. As I mentioned earlier, a versatile pantry gives you freedom because you're not stuck waiting for a coupon or bulk buys. And you already know how I feel about coupons. So now let's talk about flour substitutes, because not having it doesn't give you an excuse to stop the meal. And to help us understand the science of flour, we are going to make chocolate chip cookies. I'm going to use this bowl for the original recipe, and then my mason jars to show you the substitutions that you can use. Now, y'all just keep in mind that this is a very basic chocolate chip recipe. We're going to start with a half cup of melted butter. Next, let's add in a little less than a half cup of sugar.
And now let's crack an egg in each.
And now I'm going to add about 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Next, we're going to add a half teaspoon of baking soda. About another teaspoon of salt. I'm just going to pinch that out. Next, I'm going to add a little splash of vanilla extract. Now, if y'all are wondering what I'm going to do with all of these batches of cookies, I'm going to share them with my neighbors. Yeah, their kids love me. We've gotten to the fun part. We're going to add a cup of chocolate chip cookies to each jar. Now we're going to dole out 1 egg. Flour, which is also then our substitution. And I'm adding a cup of flour. All right, we're gonna go ahead and give things a stir here. All right, y'all, so this is what we're working with. Oh, it looks so good, smells even better. So oat flour works pretty well as an all-purpose flour substitute. It doesn't contain any gluten and it absorbs a lot of moisture. And so as a result, oat flour offers a really soft textured crumb. But your cookies made with oat flour are going to be a bit more fragile. And so they're gonna have a softer bite and less texture. Actually, I would say like less of that chew if like a chewy cookie is kind of your thing. I know it's my husband's. But that's where you could use a binder like flax. But if we're strictly speaking flavor-wise, oh my goodness, oatmeal pairs beautifully with chocolate chip cookies. Okay, now at the end, I'm going to show you like a wet texture comparison. You can kind of see it's a bit softer. You could add more of the oat flour, but this is going to be just fine. I don't recommend actually stirring everything in mason jars, but it's glass and I kind of wanted you to see me build the recipe, so we're making it work. Now let's talk about the benefits of using chickpea flour. So chickpea flour is also high in protein and fiber, and it's also gluten-free, but it does have a slightly bitter flavor when it's undercooked, but it actually does really well when it's paired with very kind of rich flavors like a dark or milk chocolate or peanut butter. Another thing to know about chickpea flour is that on its own, it's going to be very dense and can add a chalky texture to things. But all hope is not lost. What I recommend doing is just using half of the amount. You just want to like cut it with something that's lighter, like oat flour. And another thing to add is that chickpea flour, if you're just using it straight up, it does do better if you are making a dish that has a higher fat ratio. And a little trick I picked up from somewhere, I don't know where I read this, but if you just chill your dough in the fridge for a bit, then that does something that helps. So that's what we're gonna do with this. All right, so let's talk about almond flour. That's what we're gonna add to this mixture. Now, almond flour is high in fat and moisture, but it's low in binding power. So it results in a cookie that's denser, slightly moist, and crumbly, like shortbread cookies. But the nutty flavor, it pairs beautifully with chocolate or peanut butter. But without the gluten, it's not gonna really hold its shape well, so we absolutely gotta chill these in the fridge first. And this is what we're working with so far. So a 50-50 mix of cornstarch and almond flour also does really well as an all-purpose flour replacement. So the cornstarch is adding this very delicate melt in your mouth texture, and then with almond flour, it mimics the texture of all-purpose flour, but you don't get the gluten. And the result is this soft cookie that actually holds up pretty well if you chill it first. So I would say that this is better for like a soft batch or your sandwich style cookies rather than the ones that have, like the crispy edges. So then after I pour this in, we're going to combine everything. And then I'm just chilling stuff for like a half hour. That's really all you need at a minimum. Okay, y'all. So this is what I think we're going to go ahead and do. So I have my baking tray here, and I always just line it with a silicone liner. But then I took some parchment paper and I cut it up into 5 narrow strips because I'm going to, so this professional baking mat thing is towards me. So as I take it out of the oven, I will remember to put it on the counter this way. But then I'll lay like 2 cookies on each sheet. And you don't want to write, with a pen or like a Sharpie marker because it could like bleed into the food. And I do think I'm going to show you like a little taste test here. So what I'll do is just write on this sticky note, stick it right here. And that way I'll know kind of like this is position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is on the professional baking mat side. But let's go ahead and grab our chilled cookie dough. Okay, so in my front and left block, I am going to scoop out 2 scoops of the oat flour cookie dough. So here's what it's looking like. And I'm just gonna give you my hands. I think I'm just gonna use my hands. I will kind of show you kind of what it's feeling like. Just kind of smash it down like that. All right, so we have cookie number 1. Do 1 more. All right, so next in our middle front square, I'm going to do the gluten-free blend. It looks like this after about a half hour of chilling. It's a little bit more wet. That looks about right. And we'll do 1 more. All right, so now in the sorry, let me move you back. In the front right, we're going to add our almond flour cookie. Get a bit more wet. Let me add a little bit more to this. Oh, this one has lots of chocolate chip cookies. All right, y'all. So in this back left-hand corner, we're going to use I just wrote it down, the chickpea. Oh, here it is. Yeah. The chickpea oat flour blend. And yeah, this is a bit more stiff, a bit more dense, as I was sharing with you, of all of the doughs. I mean, I'm glad that we mixed it because it would have been just even more firm than this. There's one, a slightly bigger cookie. That's okay. All right, then we're gonna put that there. And last but not least, we have our original recipe here. So again, this is our regular all-purpose flour. Boom, there we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the roll call. So we have, and I'm going to put it in the oven, boom, like this, so that when I take it out, again, I know that I have the writing here that says professional baking mat. So I have in the left front oatmeal, middle front the gluten-free blend, front right almond flour, back left chickpea oat blend, and back right all-purpose flour. All right, to the oven we go. Okay, y'all, it's the moment of truth. Oh, but it smells so good in here. Okay, y'all, so this is what we have. I mean, we have chocolate chip cookies here, all kinds. All right, so the cookies have had a chance to slightly cool, and I just wanted to kind of show you how they're looking. And so they're fully done. These were the cookies that we made with the oat flour. And so, oh my goodness, they're still like, they're warm, so you might want to eat them at this temperature, but they're going to have like a nice little, like a nice crisp, a nice kind of like crumb to them. Beautiful though. This cookie is really good. It's just crisp. Not dry at all. Really great flavor. I mean, I prefer these like straight out of the oven and then just cool like they are now, but if you told me that there wasn't flour in here or that it was oatmeal, it totally works. Okay, so in the center we had our gluten-free blend. So I'm going to do the same thing where I just take my spatula, put it underneath. And here you can see that these have like it's indenting a bit in the center. Like, can you tell? Yeah, you could see that dent, right? But then you still have like the crisp edges that are here. Now these have like that chew. So good. So over in this region, we had our almond flour cookies. So here's what we have for our almond flour cookies. Again, it's a nice shortbread cookie. Look, you still have some give that's there. They're a little bit more crisp, but like still chewy, right? These are so good. This doesn't scream like almond flour cookie. Not at all. Oh my gosh. Look at all the chocolate chips in this one. Wow. Overload. These are really good. Okay, so our cookie back here was the chickpea flour mix. And this is the cookie that I told you, like you can even tell, actually, right? Like you can tell that this with the chickpea flour is a bit more dense than the almond flour, a bit more dense than the gluten-free blend, and then our oatmeal. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's just another option. But these are, I like doing that combination because look, this cookie is still actually soft. Yeah. You weren't expecting this from chickpeas, were you? Yeah. It doesn't taste like chickpeas. There's no like, I wonder what that is. Like, it doesn't taste like beans, right? These are really, really good. All right, so finally we have our original cookies made with all-purpose flour. Oops. There we go. And here we go. Yeah, so I would say depending on how you cook your cookies, maybe you're going to use like different ratios than what I did. This wasn't my like super kind of like dense cookie dough. I was trying to do something that would be a bit more uniform across, but all of these cookies you could take to a holiday party, you could take to work. They're perfect for people with food sensitivities, and they are delicious. The only thing that's missing is a glass of milk.
Let's talk about cheese. It's an ingredient that brings flavor, salt, stretch, and drama. It thickens sauces and gives them that smooth, I'm rich but approachable energy. And when it hits your taste buds, they immediately say, oh yes. But here's how you can fake it fabulously. First up, a combination of olive oil and nutritional yeast. So I have different ratios that you can follow in the free substitutions download, but basically what you're doing is taking your nutritional yeast, your olive oil, a couple splashes of milk, or even broth, like chicken or vegetable broth, and boom, you have this incredible sauce. And no, it won't stretch like mozzarella in a pizza ad, but it will coat your noodles. Another cheese sauce substitute you can make starts with cashews. So you just soak them, or if I'm in a rush, I do a quick boil, and then you're going to blend them in a regular blender with a little bit of water or broth, garlic, salt, and you are going to end up with this luxe creamy sauce. And it's dairy-free. You just want to make sure that you don't skip on soaking the nuts or boiling them, or you're going to end up with this like gritty texture to your sauce. Another cheese sauce substitute you can use is tofu, lemon, and garlic. And tofu is like that introverted friend who just needs a little seasoning and confidence. And what happens is you blend it with lemon juice, olive oil, garlic, and salt, and it gives you this creamy, it's like a very similar to ricotta. Yes, ricotta is the best way to explain it. And then at this point, so you have like the texture that's there, but it can still be a little bland, but all you have to do is just add in some smoked paprika and mustard. You can also substitute cheese with beans. Now this is no glam, just results, but the taste is there. So what you do is go ahead and take your beans and you're going to mix them with some broth, some salt, some garlic, then season it up how you want. You know, maybe you're going to add a little bit of mustard, but I'm telling you, that combination is surprisingly impressive. Now I want to give you some baking powder substitutes. So whether you've run out of baking powder or you just have multiple boxes of baking soda, that's one thing that I used to do. I would have all these boxes of baking soda and then I don't know, I would just like mix the two up. Anyways, the powder is what gives your recipes that lift. So when you run out of it, don't panic, just pivot. So your first little substitute is to mix baking soda with cream of tartar. And you're gonna use like a 1/4 teaspoon of the baking soda to a 1/2 teaspoon of the cream of tartar. They're gonna do their little science thing and they're gonna rise like the muffins from aisle 7. No drama, works every time. You can also use baking soda and lemon juice if you also don't mind that lemon flavor. But the acid from the lemon juice activates the baking soda instantly, so you gotta like put it in there and then bam, move it to the oven. And it's a fun little way to zippy up your muffins if they've got some place, you know, fancy to be. You can also mix baking soda and yogurt. And this is gonna bring in acid and moisture. You're just gonna have to make sure that you dial back on some of the other wet ingredients. But trust me, it's worth it. Another substitute that I have used are whipped egg whites. And you just whip your egg whites into soft peaks and you fold them in. And just like that, you have this air-powered rise.
So the next time you're low or out of milk, eggs, oil, whatever, don't run to the store, run to your pantry. Because you've got options, and ones that are smart, tasty, time-tested, and science-backed. And that's not just cooking, that's kitchen confidence. Now go make those muffins rise and bake those cookies. I'll see you in my kitchen or garden soon. Take care, friends.